Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our May 10th, 2023 Planning Board meeting. Would you please rise and join me in the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Before the roll, like to welcome our newest member, Ken Christensen. No round of applause or anything. Thank you, Steve.
Chairman John Curry.
Here.
Vicky Gannon.
Here.
Nancy Garbino.
Here.
Ken Christensen.
Here.
Bruce Prince.
Here.
Jack Mattis.
Here.
Chris Zaberto.
Here.
Thank you. First on our agenda is the draft minutes from April 12th, 2023. If there's no changes or corrections or additions, I make a motion we accept the minutes as presented.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Next on our agenda is project review of the RSIC Corporation site plan approval for a parking lot expansion located at 378 Route 202. It's installation of 12 new parking spaces to be utilized for overflow parking and an area to plow the snow. The 1.06 property is located in the BHP district. Mr. Allen.
Good evening, Tim Allen, Vivo Associates, representing Dr. Renani. Dr. Renani is here tonight. We had a very productive site walk a few Saturdays ago, looked at the site. We had discussed some of the landscaping that was on the plan. We are working towards the responses to the Woodward and Curran outstanding comments that are currently before the board. We don't see that there's too much in there. I believe at the site walk, we had discussed potentially setting a public hearing date, and in the interim, our deadline date, it will be the end of this month. We'll certainly submit a revised plan to this board, but well before that public hearing date.
Any board member comments, and we'll hear from staff. For anybody, any comments from the site walk? No.
It seemed to make perfect sense.
Yes, it did. Dave?
No additional comments at this time.
Steve?
No further comments.
What's your feelings about the outstanding items? Setting up a public hearing at this meeting.
I think it's our preference to make sure that we have a full submittal package from the applicant before scheduling the public hearing.
Okay. Board agree with that?
Yes, agree.
Yes.
Very good.
Okay.
So we'll come back with the.
All right. Thank you. Next is Lincoln Land LLC application for the amended site plan approval for the facility that's located at 154 New York State Route 202. For the record, this 2-acre piece of property is in the NS zoning district.
Yes. Good evening, Chairman Curry and members of the board. My name is Peter Helms with the Helms Group Architects and Engineers in Katona, New York. And with me tonight is Dan McNamee, the owner of the property. We started out with this project being asked to basically locate the concrete pads that were added to the property over the years subsequent to the original site plan approval. And this plan that we have here was the original approved site plan. And we went out and did that task, and then it kind of mushroomed into a lot more, and which I understand fully. I mean, we want a plan that's completely clear and readable for clarity and so forth. So from this plan, we ended up developing 2 additional plans. And one is basically to create a new site plan that has topography, that shows all of the utilities, shows all of the concrete pads and structures, accessory structures and so forth that are on the job today. We've been back with Woodard and Curran with their review, and we just received the recent one. Thank you very much. I know the engineer Tim Kurse, is it Tim Kurse? The engineer addressed the comment relative to storm water management. I'm not sure if it was satisfactorily addressed or not, but and I'm not sure whether the consultants for the town even received a copy of that email. I think it was just received by you and then submitted yesterday. So probably not in your, you did see it. Okay. So I think where we are today is, and correct me if I'm wrong, but following down the comments from Woodard and Curran, and we've got items that refer back to a memorandum that was issued a few months ago back, and items 1 and 2, to my knowledge, and according to the memo, have been satisfactorily addressed. Item 3 is something that I think we would like to have a little more clarification. Maybe we can have some discussion tonight briefly on, which is relative to the property. First of all, it's nice to have a town that has a board to present on and a little stick to show, because many places, if we don't bring our easels, we're stuck using chairs and whatnot. In any event, item 4, let's see, is it item 4, item 3? Item 3, the applicant shall provide an accounting of the modifications from the approved site plan, including size and material. And that we have addressed on the site plan. We've got all of the different items numbered, and we have a legend up on the top left that kind of describes what each and every one is. However, the town consultant's memo states that it does not note the 20-foot buffer on the southern property line. This is the southern property line along here. And it further states that the pad number 4 and the shed number 8 were not on the original approved site plan. And that is absolutely correct. They were not. But that has been picked up on the updated site plan. And then it mentions that the removal of the fence defining the buffer area and the driveway between the two properties. To my knowledge, from when we were out there, there's, and correct me if I'm wrong, Dan, Jersey barriers, which are known as the concrete barriers that run along the property line. And there's no longer, when I was there, a driveway that has access back and forth in and out of the property. Then if we go to the current zoning, if we're reading this right, it would be section 170-20.3 and alphabetical letter I. And that appears to me that it reads such that a buffer is not required along a property that has a non-residential property. There's residential on the back of the property. There's a small portion of residential here, but we do have the buffers indicated on both of those lots. But being that this is non-residential, they're basically two similar type of properties with contractors' yards for the most part. Didn't see the requirement for having a buffer along this side. However, the original approved site plan did indicate a 20-foot buffer. So I think that's where the consultant might have been picking that up. So that section reads that we're abutting a non-residential district. The minimum side yard shall be 0 feet, where adjacent property owners agree to provide a common wall and build to their common property line. And then it says and, which I think should say or, shall be 25 feet if they do not agree. So I think what they're saying, that they say if there's a wall built, I don't know the definition of a wall, but I think it goes on to say that they build to their property line. So that's not the case. They have not built to the property line. The building ends at this point here. And the wall is basically just this concrete Jersey barrier for a good portion of it. And then you've got a wall of this existing building here. So we're happy to address that any way the board would like. according, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, Dan, the adjacent owner here had built this shed structure that projects on and encroaches their property. Dan, as the owner of this property, has no problem with that, but he would like to have a revocable easement in place that if he ever sells his property some time down the line, if the new owner wants that removed, that can be initiated and they can force him to remove that shed structure. At this point, it doesn't bother you. So I guess that's something that we would look for the board, how we want to address that. Should we stay on that one to address this and before we go to the next one, or?
However, the board would like to address, I go one by one and have a discussion, or have them go through and then go back.
You're the one that's going to be answering the question. So what do you think?
No,
Not too long of a list.
but it might be better for
fair.
continuity if we could stay with it. I mean, that's
That's fine. No, that's,
Just, why don't we run through?
run through them. Okay,
Taking notes,
okay.
we'll refer back.
Fair enough. The applicant shall provide details on how the stormwater from the existing site and the new impervious areas is being managed. There was an email provided. I'm happy to read that to the record if you'd like, from the engineer, Tim Cruz, or it has been submitted. We can leave that up to the town consultants to
Yeah.
review and then
we'll review and comment.
Okay, very good. And then item number 5, the applicant shall provide a summary of the site compliance with the notes on the approved site plan. And it was apparently partially addressed. And it states that the site is not in compliance with the maintenance of fencing and vegetated buffer along the southern property line. And it says per comment 3 above. So I think that really has to do with the same issue with that property line between the two industrial commercial related uses in the NS zone. Item 6, I think it pertains also to the south property line encroachment of the south side of the site and the southwest corner. Again, it's all the south side. Here's the southwest corner. I believe there was a driveway access into the property at one point.
That comment's actually dealing with the oh gosh, the west side near Route 202.
Oh, up here?
Yeah, where at least on the way the plan is presented here, it appears to me anyway that the shopping center parking lot crosses the property line.
Shopping center parking lot. Let me just see.
There's a gray shading right there where your finger was.
I think you're correct on that. I think you're in this portion, a little square portion of the existing shopping center encroaches into the subject parcel too. So I don't think you have a problem with that either, but
Always been there. It's been like that.
again, it's
Maybe not in 1992.
and again, I think this is where we're looking for direction from the board and the consultants on how we,
It's probably on the original approved plan also.
let me see.
Hasn't changed. Not shown.
Yes, it's not really shown on the original plan. It's just.
The driveway hasn't changed.
Okay. Let's see. So that was 6, I think. 7, the applicant shall provide information on the type, quantity of hazardous materials. That's been addressed. 8 has been addressed. And then there is a new comment. And this is one relative to item 8 and the different structures that are listed that have roof structures over them. So we have not included, if you look at the zoning chart, the total permissible accessory coverage is 1%. Without those roof structures, we comply. If we were to add those roof structures in, I believe we would need to get a variance for exceeding the minimum accessory coverage if I'm.
And the consulting town planner, Dave Smith, I think has clarified for me anyway, that comment in the building code. So I don't believe that the shed roof structures need to count towards that
Oh,
coverage.
great. Well, that's excellent then.
So
So that's
that's-
beautiful. So that's basically where we are, and just want to try to move things forward to get this as an approved site plan.
You have any? You want me to?
Go ahead.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And a lot of those comments are really just to make sure the board is clear on what the changes have been. And can then come back and approve an amended site plan if they so choose. Along the southern property line where we talked about the vegetated buffer and fencing being removed. Again, I just wanted to make sure that the
Absolutely.
planning board was aware of that change in that area. On the, we talked about the easements and it appears, at least on the plan, that not only shed roof 8, but a little corner of that shed might also be in there too. And so I don't know if that's as easily removed.
This is not easily removed, but you're
And-
correct. The shed was something that was built after the, let me just look at the original approved site. I
Yeah, it was built after the approved site. Yes.
But I don't see the other building on the original approved site plan either, so.
That was built after, so.
So everything was built after. But you're absolutely correct. There is a wedge pretty much along that entire end of the building there that encroaches the property. And again, I don't know whether a revocable
That's fine.
easement, or I don't know if that's acceptable to the town or the planners. Or
Yeah, I think that's the concern, I think, is approving a site plan that has a violation. Yes, and so making sure that there's a path forward for the board. Lot line adjustment, yeah.
So I see what you're saying. You're saying that at this point, if we're trying to get an approved site plan, we would need to address this and address the corner of the parking lot projecting in there.
I would think that
And
would be
how
favorable.
could that be addressed with some type of a legal easement? Or do they have to remove them? I mean, that's,
Or
or,
move the lot line.
so we'd establish a lot line
To
here.
remove the encroachment.
Probably be easier.
What about moving the lot line to the north?
You could, but yeah, I don't know that you want to lose that property. I think you're gonna,
Just,
oh, you mean get rid of the shed and then just move it so it's the main portion of the building is within the property. That seems simply,
we can't give them a temporary easement.
well, that's, I guess, up to the board.
That's what I would.
If it's
We-
something that can be revoked later, then we would be out of compliance, right? If the site plan hinges on, correct me if I'm wrong. If the site plan hinges on an approved easement between the two tenants, if you will, the two landowners. And then there becomes a point where we have to revoke that. Then we're back to square one, where now we have a building on a property line that's not in compliance with town code.
Well, not necessarily. I think the way I understand that would be a revocable easement would allow them to maintain their portion of their parking lot and their little building here for as long as this property owner owns the property. And if at some point this owner decides that he wants them to take it down, then he can enact his right to or act on that revocable easement and force them to remove this building and force them to remove the pavement. I think that would bring the site plan back into more compliance and it would eliminate those encroachments. If we could do it legally,
Jerry, I thought, correct me, if I'm wrong, I thought we always had to have a clean site plan.
That's what I was discussing here with the consultants, that it should be a clean site plan, and this one isn't.
Right.
And
Can we ask why in 92, the original site plan included a buffer zone? Was there a legislative reason for that?
We're having trouble hearing you.
I don't have a mic. Thank you. Do we know why in 1992, the site plan included a buffer zone on that side? Was that part of some legislative requirement at that time?
The only thing I can think of was that it might have been a previous code because it did have a note buffer, and the town consultant was correct. It had an arrow to the rear of the property and it had an arrow to this side, which is this note. This note right here. It's got one arrow to the back and it's got one arrow to the right side here. So the only I can think of, the way I read the ordinance today, it does not appear that you need a buffer between a non-residential property.
Was there different, do we know if there was, and this is historical, if there was different zoning in this region back then and we did a zoning change?
You know, this is the zoning chart. And whoops,
Jerry, you want, you have something you want?
I just think, Mr. Chairman, you're correct, and I think we agree here that there needs to be a clean site plan, and that is the obligation of the applicant to present one. Not to have the board come up with, give them 5 different varieties of doing it. And an easement, which is revocable, is not, first from my perspective, a clean site plan.
Uh-huh.
I mean,
I
not
mean, there's ways-
trying to be,
there are ways to clean this up, and I, something that's, could be changing. Site plan, they're gonna, they probably don't need any variances, so the site plan is gonna be what the board is gonna work on. It should be clean, and it should be the applicant that should present something that is clean, not with 2 incursions of the neighbor's property.
So just to restate and maybe expand on that, our requirement is a clean site plan, and we do not provide legal advice on how they achieve that.
Correct. And if there was an error ever made, one of the beauties of the building departments and boards, municipal boards, is they can correct any errors. So if that's what occurred, it's still, my advice is to require a clean site plan.
I think that's good advice.
Good advice.
and that leaves us with one option, just to have the 2 neighbors remove the encroachments. That's basically, I mean, unfortunately, that's,
I'm not trying to throw a monkey wrench into anything, but I did hear something last week that shopping center may be for sale. Is there any credibility that you know of to
I
that?
haven't heard of it.
Which, is it the shopping center that's making the encroachment, or is it the other side?
it's the shopping center that has the encroachment at this point here, which
Well, by all means, clean it up. I should think a new buyer would want a clean site plan.
yeah, I mean, it basically, you would have to have, I think, your attorney write a letter stating, in order to have an approved site plan, we need to have them remove their encroachment onto your property here, and this property owner to remove their encroachment on your property there, and then we have a clean site plan. So,
It would drastically affect our entrance by doing that.
oh, for the parking, for
The entrance to the shopping center.
really?
Yeah.
You know, you're,
Cuts off that entrance.
yeah, I see.
It cuts off
Well,
their entrance.
Maybe.
Cuts off water.
Maybe you have the shopping center, we're just talking out loud, pay to have the lot line changed here to accommodate their parking and driveway. And then this one here, you either have to have them rip that down, change your lot line. It sounds like the board is open to any of those options. I mean,
yeah, I think I'm getting the feeling from the rest of the board and advice from council. I think we want a clean site plan, quite frankly.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a lot of variables
Gotcha.
here. There's a lot of, it's not clean,
Understood.
Quite frankly, how you make it clean, I don't think we're not hung up on that.
You don't care.
We got 30 plus years of modifications that
Yeah.
were,
Yep.
done throughout that time period
Okay.
that now maybe they need to get looked at.
Okay. So there's a few options here that we can look at from a lot line change as one and the other as just remove the encroachments. And I think those are the two options. So thank you for the direction. I think that's what we're really looking for here.
Just Jerry, Steve, and Dave, we're all in agreement here?
That's reasonable for
Okay.
for those encroachments.
Board?
Yes.
Yes.
And I don't want to speak for the board. Everybody feel that way?
Yeah.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
thank you.
If I can address a couple
Sure.
items, the stormwater,
Yes.
the way that should be addressed is managed, excuse me, I'm finding a little cold. It needs to be managed on site. I did see the reply that referred to, stormwater treatment with a buffer strip of 400 feet, but,
That's offsite other
That's
people's
offsite.
property. Gotcha. Okay.
and so I don't think that for a site of this nature, that's terribly intensive. It's not a lot of new subsurface area. It's a
Gotcha.
little bit of infiltration and that should be easily dealt with. That's how we would deal with any new
Great.
site plan application now, which is how this is being handled.
Totally understood. Okay.
What type of business does Mr. McNamee do on this property?
Road construction.
Construction? And the need for the concrete pads is for
That
your,
was to store materials instead of storing our materials in the wet mud. We just poured a concrete pad to keep it out of the mud.
That's
comment. Well, it's just so I'm clear, so you're gonna address the two encroachments, right? For the clean site plan. Are you also gonna address or the next submission is gonna address the stormwater drainage as well, right?
Absolutely.
So it'll
Yes.
be a clean site plan, right?
all the way around.
Yeah.
Okay.
Unfortunately, the next meeting, I think, is June 14th,
correct.
and I'm going to be in Cape Cod on vacation. So we'll have to request that we get put on the following meeting if that's okay with you.
No problem.
Great.
Does the board have any guidance to the applicant on the removal of that vegetative buffer, even if it's not code required, it was part of the approved site plan on the rest of that portion of the southern boundary?
It may be helpful if you include some language, historical language, if you can find it, as to why that was so important to be included in on that site plan at that time. That may help us understand.
I'll do my best, but I really don't know how much luck I'm going to have with the historic. All I know is that note was on the approved site plan. And then what we did was we went to the zoning ordinance to read the requirements, and we didn't see a requirement for that in the current. Now, I'm not sure, but we'll take a look into that for sure.
It's possible it's not a requirement, correct?
Right, which
Yeah.
would be
Which would-
important to know
Yeah,
now.
True.
Right,
It could be
exactly.
it could have been the planning board requirement. Absolutely.
Mr. Chairman, it could be also just understanding that you do have a residential community to that one corner.
The residential's along the back here.
Yep.
And then you have from the stick up is residential, and that back
Right.
corner from the stick down is
Yeah, but
the
so-
NS zone.
So you may not necessarily want to have a 20-foot buffer along the entirety of that southern boundary, but maybe just, I think you're showing it in the corner there.
Well, we have it here. Yes,
Right,
we have it
so-
here. You're saying maybe extend it back a little bit?
Or at least maintain what you have
Okay.
in that location, given that there's proximate to a residential community. You may not necessarily have to have it extend.
The whole one, but yeah, up in that corner.
Because you have a
Right,
comparable use on the southern boundary
right.
between the two properties.
And theoretically, that buffer should extend on the adjacent property, I would assume, but we don't know what's on there. So. Okay. Well, thank you very much
Thank
for
you.
your comments. This was very helpful.
Enjoy your
Appreciate it.
vacation.
Thank you. Thank you.
Next on our agenda is the application for special permit renewal for the new singular wireless PCS located at 115 Route 202, which is also 87 Route 202. It's for an existing wireless communications facility as per resolution BZO 1B04. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, staff. For the record, Maximilian Mahalik with the law firm of Cuddy and Fader on the behalf of New Singular Wireless, also known as AT&T. So this matter and the subsequent two matters on the agenda, they are pretty straightforward requests. This is a request for the 5-year renewal for the special use permit for existing infrastructure at the location, existing antennas utilized by AT&T. As the chairman articulated, this is at 115 Route 202, also known as 87 Route 202. We've taken a look at the memorandum from Mr. Robbins and the draft resolution, and we find that it is pretty straightforward, and we thank the board for providing that in advance of the meeting. I did have a couple requests to the board as part of waivers or just edits to the draft resolutions, Mr. Chairman, if I may. Great.
Absolutely.
So as this is an existing facility and there are no changes planned, we would respectfully request that the board waive the public hearing. Again, nothing's going to be changing at the site. Now, in terms of the comments from Mr. Robbins and the related requirements in the resolution, I would note that at line items 3 and 8 of the draft resolution, there is a denotation of submitting a building permit application. But because nothing's being changed, I understand that there would be no building permit filed. So I would just respectfully ask that that be modified as the board sees fit. Secondly, at line item 8, there is a reference back to the items requested in the memorandum. And this focuses on the request for a structural analysis. There was a structural analysis submitted with the package. So one thing to note for this site, as with the other sites later in the agenda, AT&T is not the tower owner. They are a provider, one of several providers at each site. So what AT&T did is they went back into their records and they reached out to the tower owners as well to say, hey, what is the most recent structural analysis tower owner that you have? Let's submit that. And so that's what was submitted. We see in the comment in the memorandum that there is a request for it to be updated with a on-site inspection and on-site testing. Now, unfortunately, because there are other providers in addition to AT&T doesn't necessarily have access to those other providers' equipment to do the testing to get certain measurements. And that would really be part of the purview of the tower owner. I think part of this might be because the way the law is written is there isn't necessarily a bifurcation between providers and tower owners. But I do note that the tower owner, so in this case, Crown Castle, they would be returning before their board as part of the board's prospective review for their renewal request. And they'll be able to provide the full structural analysis with all the information they have from all their individual providers. So we would respectfully request a waiver. We did do our due diligence with submitting the structural analysis that was available to us. And again, nothing is being proposed to change. So there wouldn't be any impact to the structural integrity of the structure. So I will leave that with the board, but we would respectfully submit that request. And then lastly, there was a comment in the memorandum regarding backup power. I did confirm with AT&T that the facility at this site is designed to have 6 to 8 hours of backup power, which has proved to provide sufficient time for if there was a larger outage to have the wires repaired to continue coverage. And then there's also the duplicative coverage with the other sites on the agenda this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Steve.
Yeah, that's one of the things that is challenging in the code is that the special use permit is issued to the antenna providers, not the tower owner. And the code does require for the special permit renewal for there to be a visual inspection of the tower and equipment. And so that's the language that's being requested. We take no issue with the calculations or the modeling that was done. It just has to also include someone that has looked at it every 5 years. That's what we ask for. In terms of it being contingent on building permit, you're correct. There is no building permit. So that would just be corrected to be before issuance of the resolution. So it's a condition of the resolution before signing of the resolution.
So if I interpret what you just said, as long as the owner of the tower does it every 5 years, all the tenants are okay?
No.
Oh.
The special use permit is separate for each under the current code. The special use permit is issued to each carrier separately. And often they rely on the tower owner to do this. And it is on almost every application that comes before this board that we ask for that language to be added. So this tower owner has provided that in the past and can hopefully give you an updated report.
So, Mr. Chairman, if I may, just request maybe possibly a different path then. So the comment here is for clarification on the report based on a visual inspection by the tower owner. I am a bit queasy of a condition for Crown Castle, as I do not represent Crown Castle. So mayhaps I ask that it read a report by Crown Castle or AT&T or an appropriate designee, and then we could work with Mr. Robbins' office to submit that information as is appropriately.
That's fine.
Great.
That wouldn't be a bad thing to write into all of them, would it?
So we will get our 5-year inspection.
Right.
Correct.
Steve, how do you feel? How's the board feel about asking Dave to prepare a resolution?
It's fine.
Yeah, yes. We've actually prepared a draft resolution, but I think it needs to be modified, but I think
Just
just to do it subject to,
What was just discussed?
yes,
Yeah.
as discussed, right?
Board?
I have one question on it, and maybe it was from the critical mass of reading 3 all at once. So it's not particular to this or to in any way say, I think there's any problem with this. But looking at the performance removal bond condition number 2, which comes throughout, and this is an administrative question. I'm kind of on a math tear tonight. Okay. The amount and sufficiency may from time to time at the town's discretion be adjusted to account for increased costs of maintenance and or removal as the case may be. Every time I go to the grocery store, everything costs more. So as an administrative question for the town, from our perspective, because very often we're working with conditions that include a performance bond, when are they adjusted? How does that happen? Is there like an audit where everything gets adjusted? Is it a case by case basis? I just don't know. And it's something that I kind of wonder about as a resident as well as a board member.
Good question.
Yeah, it's on a case by case basis. They need to submit the application materials. How that gets reviewed or adjusted over time is something I could take up with the town clerk and with Mr. Riley's office.
Yeah, it's just a question.
Yeah.
It would be, I think, informative for us to understand too, how that over the course of time gets adjusted.
Yeah, and you did include the bond removal in the package. So yes, there is something there already in the record so that if something happens, they can remove it.
Right. And
yes,
as I said, it's
right,
nothing,
but-
it's no way to make, to imply that I think there's some problem with this tower.
Right.
It's a general question.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Yeah,
That's
you
great.
can follow up. Thank you.
Thanks.
Seems like all 3 of these fall into the same category,
Yes.
but I guess for the record, which we have to
You got it.
approve each one.
Yeah.
So, everybody okay for this one? The one at 115 Route 202?
Yes.
For the resolution with those changes
As amended.
as amended.
Yep. I'll make a
Yes.
motion to.
All in favor?
Uh,
Aye.
Aye.
All right, let's move on for the special use permit renewal for the existing wireless telecommunications facility at 121 Route 100.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Pretty much everything stated for the
Yeah.
previous matter applies here. And it's the same edits as well. The reference to the building permit line items 3 and 8 of the draft resolution. And then just a clarification that the visual inspection can be completed by American Tower or Insight. And Insight and American Tower are related entities, and they are the tower owner, or in the alternative AT&T or an appropriate designee. And then in the point of the generator was responded to in the last item, same response here. And then I just want to note that, one second, I just want to check. Yes, as built drawings that were provided, because I know there was the comment in the memoranda. Those were the most recent ones that the tower owner had available, and those are from 2013. I understand that there was a permitted 2018 change by Dish. which led to the change from the number of the structural analysis to the drawings. But we are not proposing any changes to our facility, and we are looking forward to continuing the use as is.
So the submitted drawings and the structural report don't align, and can that be corrected just for the record?
So as a part of the visual inspection, we could add then into that report just a confirmation of the height then.
Yes.
And we'll likely defer to any plans filed with the town as a part of that later modification.
That's fine. Just want it to be consistent.
Thank you.
And for the record, it's resolution BZ 1018. All right, then,
Yeah, sorry, Mr. Chairman.
Same,
real
yep.
quick, yeah, just the resolution, when the application was submitted, it had the incorrect tax lot number. I think I sent you an email earlier today. So it should read section 38.17-5-1-5.
okay.
Thank you. Yes, I think we've seen different forms of different numbers, and that might have what have led to that. I will defer to staff and the board on the updating that number for the resolution
Mary Ann
purposes.
from the office reviewed it and she caught it and
Okay.
flagged it. And so that we just want to make sure that was
Okay.
reflected in the record.
Thank you.
Then my motion to prepare staff to prepare a resolution is for 154 New York State Route 202 with those amended changes.
I'll second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, just for the record, I think the address of that one was 121 Route 100.
Yes.
Correct.
Yes.
154. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm on the wrong page. I'm sorry. I apologize. It's 121 Route 100.
Thank you.
Thank you. And the next one is for Singular Wireless AT&T at 243 Route 100, which is also 247 Route 100.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, the comments from the earlier matters apply to this one as well. The edit to the reference to the building permit and in articulating that the structural analysis, visual inspection would be undertaken by Crown Castle, AT&T, or the other appropriate designee as working with staff. And I just want to note that there is a generator on site for this facility. I did check with AT&T on that today. And other than that, it is a straightforward request comparable to the other two.
Motion again is for 243 Route 100, also known as 247 Route 100. The resolution prepared by staff with the changes.
As amended, second.
And that, for the record, that's all based on the old resolution BZ 1118. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, staff, thank you very
Thank you.
much. Have a great
Thank
night.
you.
Sorry, I had to turn this off.
One more.
More, this one's a little different.
This is Verizon now?
Yes, it's the application for the special permit modification for American Tower Corporation, known as Verizon, at 2580 Route 35. It's for a special use permit for the modifications to existing wireless telecommunications facility, including removing and replacing 6 antennas and 9 remote radio heads. And the property is located in an R80 zoning district. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Douglas Cowan. I'm here on behalf of Verizon Wireless. I'm not an attorney, but I'm a certified planner. I'm AICP certified planner. I am familiar with the application. I'm prepared to address the comments from the board's consultant, and I'll be glad to answer any questions that you may have.
Well, Steve, would you like to run through this with your comments, or Dave, either one?
Yep. The board is used to see, applications such as these, changing out of, and correct me if I'm wrong on the nature of the application, but, changing out, models of antenna, on the tower. This one I don't think involves any changes to any of the ground equipment. No new equipment on the ground, no, the tower's not getting any taller. It's really just replacing equipment on the tower itself. As such, the code requires, again, a structural analysis and inspection. That was provided, but I think the stamp was not correctly applied to it. It looked like it was digitally stamped, but without the actual stamp. The RF radio frequency analysis, there was an analysis that was prepared. The person preparing it did not, include any professional engineering stamp as well, which is required by code. And then there are a number of code requirements that the code requires essentially for changes to equipment as if it's a new application, drive tests and things like that, which the board can discuss whether they are required for this or they can be waived.
What's your suggestion?
My recommendation is that they be waived.
Okay.
In our memo, those are items
Right.
4A through F and item 5, which is resubmittal of a site plan. None of those things are changing, and I don't think they're germane to this application.
And as far as the other issues with the stamping and on how the power will be provided, we can always make that part of the resolution.
Yeah, the applicant has to resubmit, and if they have any questions on those comments, they can have.
Okay.
And EAF, I think, is also required.
It's been past practice that for applications like this, they're classified as a type 2 action under seeker because
Okay.
of the fairly limited activity. And so in the past practice, the town board has waived the submission of an environmental assessment form. Essentially, if you conclude that it's a type 2 action, you don't need an environmental assessment
Okay.
form because there's no anticipated impacts from the proposed action.
All right.
What- Any other comments? Oh, yes, no? No. No. Good. Well, then you compare a resolution and do we need a motion to waive the code requirements? I think we would, don't we?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would do that.
All right, make a motion that we waive the code requirements as summarized in the 5/3/23 memo, specifically 4A through F and 5.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And then my motion is to prepare a resolution for the Verizon at 2580 Route 35 with the engineering changes and comments as provided from Wood and Curran.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Okay.
See, you don't really need an engineer. Go back and tell them that.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, when does the resolution become available, if I might ask? When would that be signed?
Well, first you have to respond to Mr. Robbins' request for the additional information. As soon as that's provided and he says, yep, that's
Oh,
okay.
Yeah.
Then we'll have the resolution signed and we'll make it available to.
I'm glad I asked because,
Well, you had to have the resolution reviewed because we haven't seen the draft.
Right.
So it was an approval for a draft, so you have to come back for us to review and vote on
So
the
at the next
draft.
meeting.
It'll probably be reviewed and approved at the next meeting.
Exactly,
Yes.
but there
That'll
is
be
that
presented, yeah.
an additional step.
But you still have to answer the questions first.
Correct.
I'm sorry, I was intending to submit the stamped structural. I do have the signed and sealed structural here tonight. If you'd like, I can do that.
That's fine. That's
Oh,
fine.
great.
Is one enough? I don't have.
One is fine.
One's
Yeah,
fine.
they'll distribute that
Yeah.
later.
So this should be fine.
You'll be surprised. We've had
Yes.
engineer licenses that
Give it
had
to the boss.
expired.
There you go.
This is the signed and
Yeah,
sealed
okay. Thank you.
structural. You're welcome. And I have the FCC license, which is one page, and I'll turn that in. That was one of the comments.
See, the engineer would have presented that, so maybe just stick to being an attorney. Yeah, you know. Planner, I'm sorry.
And I apologize, I'm here from South New Jersey, so I'm not totally familiar with the protocol or the routine here in front of the planning board. But,
You're doing very well.
and so I think I heard you say the short environmental assessment form is not required, even though we're prepared to submit something, but if you'd rather not, that's fine.
No, we waived that for you.
Yeah, you do
Okay.
it at your own peril.
Right, yeah, exactly.
No.
That'll-
We waived that because you're from New Jersey.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
It's out in Jersey.
That's very nice. And South New Jersey, but I also have, I was hoping to bring the PE signed RF EME report, but we're still waiting for that from our consultant, so we were prepared to submit that upon receipt, which should be any day now.
That's fine.
Other than that. I
That
think
may, that may cover everything, right, Steve? Yeah, that's pretty much it.
all the documents.
Then they'll, once all that's received, right, you guys will draft the draft. And then that will come to us for review, and then June 14th, hopefully that all happens.
June 14th.
Yes,
That's when we'll.
next
vote
meeting,
yes.
yes.
Does the applicant attend at that time, or does he need to attend? Or
Yeah,
Well, you put it on the agenda, but
should I-
Yeah,
Do we need-
it's up. And yeah, you probably should have somebody,
Okay,
right? It's always better to be safe than
yeah,
sorry.
better so.
okay, I'll let them know. Thank you very much. I
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
When did we paint that? I mean, that wasn't painted last time, was it?
No, no.
Gray. The whole gray, the gray happened since the last.
It's elephant gray
That's
for the record.
Okay.
It's elephant gray.
So they just paint this.
To go with the,
Guess we're done. Oh, that's right. We still got you guys, don't we? It's an informal presentation for steep slope, stormwater management and erosion sediment control permit for 9 Carolyn Way.
The presentation says 9G Way, but the drawings show Carolyn Way.
Correct. It's a typo on the,
it was a typo.
It's Carolyn, isn't it?
Carolyn.
Yeah.
It's Carolyn Way. The person lives at the other.
John Carell or Mr. Mancini. You haven't seen this before. It's a 1.5 acre lot on Carolyn Way. Has a stream or a drainage ditch in the back with a 100-foot setback. We located the wetlands. We have health department approval for this. The driveway is relatively steep. We have a few walls on the bottom. And originally, when we submitted to the health department, we had about 5 foot, well, the 100-foot setback was 5 foot from the back of the house. And after talking with Steve and the client, we wanted to get a little more area there behind the house. So the purple line is the encroachment into the 100-foot buffer. And the encroachment is, it's 1,700 square feet of encroachment into the wetland buffer. And the total area of disturbance is 23,000 square feet.
Could you tilt it a little bit, just because the paper's not flat, it's giving me a little more trouble than you. It's always an extreme angle from here, but with the lack of flat paper. Okay.
So the stream is here and the buffer will have to be additional area. My little kid guy couldn't get me that today.
Okay. Thank you. I couldn't see beyond the fold. Thank you.
And I haven't received any permits.
Well,
Is that a good thing?
Dave,
I have no comments.
Steve,
Yep, as an initial site plan review, we're still reviewing it and preparing comments. But
okay.
it's good that the applicant was here to introduce the project to you all, and we'll be issuing a comment letter shortly that the applicant can address.
So I'm assuming you want us to see that first before we schedule a site walk or anything.
I think a site walk is probably, it could be scheduled.
We could, okay.
What did you want to see first?
Early.
Huh?
What did you want to see first?
I just wanted, I didn't know if you wanted to see any site work, site work presentation.
Oh, okay.
Excuse me?
We're thinking about scheduling a site walk.
Yes, yes. We'll have we've already authorized the surveyor to stake out the house in the center line of the driveway, so we know where we are, and that's 100-foot setback also. So whenever you do the site walk, that will be accomplished.
You tell me how much time you need to do that.
A week?
Okay, so what's everybody want to do in the week from Saturday or something like that?
Sure.
Tell me.
I think that's this.
What's the
The
date?
20th is a week from this Saturday.
Correct.
The 20th?
20th.
Can I could I start at 8 o'clock?
Sure.
Good.
Yeah, their
Then
Mancini's
I'll-
are up early.
Okay,
Just say 8.
8.
Eight?
All right.
8 a.m.
Does that give you enough time to stake everything out?
Yes, I will.
Okay,
So our sidewalks are gonna be at 8 o'clock?
yes.
Saturday,
Well,
20,
this one,
8 o'clock.
20th at 8 o'clock? The 20th at 8 o'clock?
yes.
Okay,
Okay,
yes.
There you go.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
thank you.
8 a.m. We'll send you Kev.
I haven't seen it.
I'm sure.
I understand.
Can't make.
Yeah. Next and last on our agenda is referral to the planning board, the zoning petition from Glenide Realty Inc. for rezoning of 259 Route 100. The rezoning is from an MFR 100 to an OLI. Good evening.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Stephen Rabel. I'm with the Lockmuth, McCullough, Goldberger, and Stout here tonight on behalf of Glenada Realty. With me tonight is Rick Bernardo with ownership. They are the owners of 259 Route 100, as you stated, Mr. Chairman, and we are here, as you also stated, on a referral from the town board. So to give you a little bit of history for any who may not recall, a few years back, this property was actually rezoned from the R80 to the MFR 100 to allow for multifamily development on the site. The thought process being the property was uniquely situated on this state road at a bit of a transitionary area between more residential development and the office and industrial development further along Route 100. That zoning had been applied to the site while contemplating what would have been a 2-building multifamily development for 24 dwelling units, 46 parking spaces, associated stormwater, each building being 3 stories tall. Obviously, a lot's changed in the world since 2021, and what we're now considering is developing the site with a proposed self-storage facility. Self-storage is not a permitted use in the MFR 100. So what we have petitioned the town board for is a zoning map amendment to remap this property to the OLI district, as well as a zoning text amendment. The OLI permits warehouse, but traditional warehouse does not necessarily encompass self-storage as the same thing. So we've created a definition for the term as well as certain underlying regulations for it. But the idea is to permit self-storage, the thought process being that the proposal, and I don't know if would you be able to put up our slide? Thanks so much. The idea being that the proposal would be much less impactful than the previously contemplated residential use. So as you can see here, the building, the concept is really to match residential architecture and create what we believe to be a very beautiful structure that matches into the neighborhood. We're going from 3 stories to 2. And as compared with residential, it's no school kids, significantly lower traffic impacts, minimal sewer and utility impacts, and overall, much less impact on town services. So the idea here is really to create something that we think would be useful, as well as much less impactful as compared with the residential use. We've presented this now twice to the town board. They've voiced their preference for this use over multifamily. And they declared their intent to act as lead agency on May 4th and sent it here to you for your review and recommendation. So what we're hoping to get tonight is your feedback, your thoughts, and potentially a memo back to the town board with your recommendations and as hopefully a consent to them acting as lead agency under SEMA. So I will pause there. If you have any questions.
I just wanted to mention for the record too, that we also in receipt from a letter from our chief of police about this facility, his preference for several reasons that he states.
Question. I heard a rumor or assumption that the original apartments couldn't be built because of septic problems and is that true? From the health department?
There was an issue with the water, but that has since been engineered around, so they could be built.
Yeah, there was no problem. This type of facility was suggested many years ago next door to McNamee, as a matter of fact. And at that time, what remained in my head were some of the negatives, and that was illegal storage of certain items. And how would that be handled? For instance, drugs and explosives. That would be the only negative that I can come up with. But I assume that in this modern age, unlike 20, 25 years ago, there are ways of checking for that. But I would raise that issue with the town board. I think it's a great idea, but those were the negatives that were raised some 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Would it be safe to assume that this plan will include the original stone wall that would have been there when it was residential in design? And this will have far less parking?
Yes, I believe we are including the stone wall and the significant reduction. We're going from 46 spaces to, I believe, 15.
Question about you have a two-story development there, which is that just totally fake facade? Or are there upstairs storage and downstairs storage?
Full stories of the facility, yes.
Yeah.
There's an elevator inside.
And both will
have storage units in it.
Both correct storage.
And there are elevators inside. Okay.
I got that clarification.
I was going to ask similar. So this is my first time seeing this, and the second floor is windows, looks like a residential type second floor there. That is going to be completely storage, correct?
Correct.
Those windows are open to the storage facility or just fake, they're non-functional, just facade type things? Right.
What about the problem of I've seen in a lot of people's garages, especially in Heritage Hills, where they have windows in the garages and the windows are basically slammed shut and have cartons and all kinds of storage right up to the window, which then from the outside looks somewhat unattractive. Is there any prevention of that happening there?
I think, and Rick, correct me if I'm misstating here, by virtue of the fact that they're non-functional, you're not going to see the storage coming up to the windows because they're not going to be looking into the storage area.
Yep.
Correct. They're going to be built after the structure is built. So it's a facade, but they'll look.
Right.
Dave, do you have any comments? Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm gonna defer to.
Yes,
Yep, sorry.
I had a math question in looking at the text of the proposed local law. The FAR is a 25% lot coverage, but for the maximum building coverage shall not exceed 25%, but then the maximum FAR shall not exceed 0.45. So as an issue of math, it seems to me you would want 0.5 if you're gonna have a maximum building coverage lot of 25%, if it's going to be entirely 2 stories. Because if you don't have 0.5, then part of it can't be 2 stories. Am I right, Dave?
I'm going to defer to the
So-
applicant just to go through the numbers.
Yeah, and you'll have to forgive me, I'm an attorney, so math is not my strong suit.
I wasn't a math major either, but you
But-
see
but-
what I'm saying
So I
about
think I
the,
can speak to the issue though.
yeah.
So it's approximately 2.28 acres, and the footprint is roughly 20,000 square feet. So we're talking about a grand total of roughly 40,000 square feet. 40,000 square feet floor area comes out to actually a little bit less than 0.45 FAR on the site. I think it might be 0.43 or so. As a matter of drafting, because these things are typically done in intervals of 5, we rounded up to 0.45.
Yeah, I think the variable is this overall size of the lot in question,
Correct.
which you need in order, so you could have the 25% building coverage and still have a 0.45 FAR.
I have another question. When the original apartment layout was presented here, it got a fairly good reception. And I'm just wondering, what is the basis for changing it from an apartment situation to this? What's the theory behind it?
Predominantly, the main thing is less impactful for the area and for the site. And it was just an alternative offered to the town.
Is there a need for the, I'm imagining there is a need for this type of storage,
Yes.
based on what I see in Heritage. I don't live in Heritage, but based on some of the weird things I see in Heritage going on and the problems that they have, you have a customer.
The short answer is yes, self-storage is in very high demand. And, I'm sure as Rick would tell you, and as he told the town board, a lot of the anticipated clientele are people who are downsizing from larger
Yeah.
homes, and they need a place to temporarily put their things as they figure out their living situations. So there's certainly a need for this, and we believe certainly a strong market for it in the area.
Do you anticipate, okay,
Sorry.
no, do you anticipate written into the rules and regulations, no outside storage? I.e. boats, trailers, things, campers?
Correct, no outside storage is proposed.
No, I mean prohibited, I guess is the word I was looking for.
Oh, I don't think that would be an issue for us.
If I can, that's the main reason why we only have to put the reduced parking spaces, because we don't want anything outside.
Because, obviously that changes the whole look. Yeah, okay. Judging by everything else you've done in this town, I wouldn't think you would want it anyhow.
Well, who do you intend to have manage this business? Will it be you or
We're
will
gonna
it?
manage it ourselves.
So this won't be subbed out to like a storage. And that would lead me to get into my next concern is signage now, right? With sometimes commercial signage. And I'm not sure if the town approves the zoning change, what kind of signage now comes with it or that's permissible in it. But I don't see any signage on the plan. Now, is that something that you would not do because it's the only game in town, or do you intend to sign it, or?
Well, at some point, we need some sort of signage, but it's a
Yeah.
destination location.
Yeah.
It's
Mr. Chair.
not something that we're gonna expect.
the architecture-
Yeah, the architectural review board
Architecture Review Board.
Yeah, right.
controls that.
So I understand that, but I've seen plans that show some sort of signage. And not knowing who was going to manage it, I didn't know if we were going to have a big U-Haul sign here or some other commercial entity that are known to manage storage facilities, whether they own them or not. I don't know their business.
Those would probably not be allowed by the Architectural Review Board.
Yeah, so Mr. Chairman, so.
Yes, sir.
What you're considering right now is just the zoning text.
Right.
Excuse me, zoning text and zoning map amendment. They're gonna have to come back for site plan approval if the zoning gets put in place. So you're gonna have another chance to review this.
Right.
It's on tomorrow's,
All we're doing is approving the zoning change. Is that correct?
You're providing the, comments.
Oh,
back to
comments.
the
I'm sorry. I should.
Town board
Yeah.
for their.
town board meets tomorrow.
Now, can explain to me one more time, like I'm 5, this proposed zoning change and what that allows in its entirety, if you can. In other words, in addition to a storage facility, what else could be built now? And is this zoning change only applicable to this plot? Or is it for additional parts in the area?
Oh, it would be,
So,
it has
for
to
you,
be,
Dave.
okay, yeah, so this is a specific application, first to add a definition of self-storage facility, because as Mr. Rabel indicated, there is a definition for a use, it's a storage warehouse, which is kind of close enough, and I've had some discussions with the building inspector. But I think the applicant has correctly identified that this is a more specific use than storage warehouse. And there are particular characteristics, particularly with parking and activity, that are more associated with this type of use than a storage warehouse. So that's the first item, the definition. Then they've included some of the parameters with respect to the development program, the lot coverage, the FAR, and how that would be applied to a self-storage facility. And then the third is that this use would be allowed in the OLI zoning district. So it's not just applied to this specific
correct.
property, it would be any property within the OLI
Okay,
that meets the specific parameters.
so any OLI zoning within Somers.
Yes, could now accommodate a
A storage
self-storage facility, yes. And the fourth is they're looking to rezone this particular property from the MFR 100 to the OLI, and the OLI is essentially an adjacent district to this property. So those are the parameters that are being discussed tonight as far as zoning.
Usually when you do a proposal like this, you mention specifically the other sites it could be applied to. Do you happen to have that for our information?
So unlike the MFR 100, where there were specific locational requirements, and Steve, correct me if I'm wrong, but you had there were 2 or 3 or maybe 4
Correct.
locations where you could apply the MFR 100. Here, because it's you're adding the definition and the use in the OLI district, a permitted use, it could be applied to any OLI district zone within the town of Somers.
I understand that. That's why I asked specifically. People are going to want to know where else could this possibly pop up?
So where are the current
Where-
Where
OLI?
are the other-
I don't have a
Okay.
zoning map in my head, but that's a
No,
good question to
but
ask.
It's
Right.
very important to mention that tomorrow at tomorrow's meeting, in case someone hasn't done it.
Yeah, I don't think that this matter is coming up at tomorrow's meeting, but it will come up as part of the public hearing, the required public hearing in June.
Okay.
So we can, certainly provide that comment for the town board's consideration at the public hearing. Yes.
And the town board is the lead agency for the zoning change.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they've circulated a notice of intent to act as lead agency, but in reality, they're the only body that legislatively can approve zoning text and zoning map amendments, but they're going through this process to allow your board, other interested agencies, New York City DEP was copied. We got a comment from the police chief, the Bureau of Fire Prevention, and all the other entities within the town of Somers will have an opportunity to comment for the public hearing. At the public hearing, they'll declare themselves lead agency, but it's just a procedural step. Thank you.
Correct.
What about, why wasn't this use added to the manufacturing zoning instead of changing the entire zoning area? Is that a reasonable question or?
Well, the property is currently zoned MFR 100,
Right.
multifamily. So in order to accommodate the use, I think it makes more sense to have this type of use as an office light industrial use as opposed to a residential, even multifamily residential. So I think that's the applicant looked at the existing zoning map, saw that the OLI district is basically right next door, and thought that was, a fairly easy transition going from, or extending the OLI district.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right, and then if we change the language on the MFR zone, then we could have houses and storage in the same area theoretically.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah,
so
I
it
don't know
would
that
make more
that's-
sense to keep it in the industrial language, so to speak, you
Right.
know.
Right.
Than going out and changing residential where we have a lot more of that than we have OLI here, so.
So what are you going to kind of summarize what you've heard from all of us today?
Yes,
And
and I'll,
it's-
I'll put together
Okay.
a memo for you to review. I think we could do it, just electronically review it. And
Okay.
then I could provide, the town board with
Summary of our.
of the discussion that was here
Okay,
tonight. And obviously, it's reflected in the minutes, of the planning board meeting.
Right.
So we're just summarizing what the discussion that you've had tonight. That's all.
I'm just one of 7 voices, but I find this much more attractive.
That was our hope.
Yeah.
Well, and I
Yeah.
think too, what is outlined in the petition, that it's a less intense use of the
Yes,
site
clearly.
is spot on. And I think that's also what makes it a preferable solution. So I think, eventually anticipating we'll get there. It's just a matter of, step by step. And I think Nancy makes a perfect point that always we've supplied that exhaustive list of what it could be applied to. And it's pretty traditional that an application that will require an amendment to zoning, that the town would be lead agency because it's going to be that policy decision to do that. So everything makes sense to me. I don't have any.
But they'll only be lead agency for the zone change. We will become the lead agency when it goes to the next step for site plan.
Right.
Right, absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We appreciate your time. Have a
Thank
nice
you.
evening.
Before we adjourn, Nancy wants to discuss something with you. I mean, I'm obviously in public, we talked about before.
You said you were going to bring.
Well, I didn't quite understand, so
Yep.
I didn't understand what quite understand what you're saying about.
No, it's-
She thought at the Green Tree, and you're gonna help us with this, at the Green Tree application before, when you said, go back and resubmit.
No,
Am I
not
quoting
Green Tree.
correctly?
It was- it was the
Talk about
panel.
Braintree, it was Panning.
Panny, I'm sorry, Panny. I'm sorry. I apologize, Panny. That we really should have kept the public hearing open because it's going to be a resubmittal. And I'm looking for Jerry for some guidance here too.
The resubmittal that we were asking for, the applicant in that application in response to comments would send us an updated page of this and, here's this stamped sheet as individual pages and to make sure that we had a comprehensive package, we just asked them to compile all of those individual submittals and send it all to us at one time. So there's no new information being submitted.
Yeah,
It
that
was-
was my understanding of it was.
It was more just an administrative to make sure that the application is complete and consistent. And if there are any changes in what is submitted, then it would need to come back to the board to reopen the public hearing.
And
Yeah, and I think that caveat was put in that specifically, and I think
what
I
about
just
the
mentioned.
time limit about the approval of the well?
Time limit.
No, I think, let me just jump in.
No, that's a time limit from once the clock starts.
Yeah, so Jerry, when the public hearing is closed for a subdivision, a clock starts ticking, right? I think it's 62 days for the planning board to make a decision. So at the next meeting, June 14th, it's actually at day 63. So the question is, without having this confirmation of all of the information, what steps
The applicant could extend it, correct?
by mutual agreement, the applicant could extend? So,
Mutual agreement with who?
With who?
Them and us?
yes.
Do we
Okay.
have to agree?
So
What, I didn't hear you, Nancy.
Do we have to agree?
Well, why wouldn't we agree?
Wouldn't you agree? You want to look at the stuff.
Okay.
We want to see that, we want to see the outcome of what the Board of Health says, yeah.
I would call the applicant and have them agree and.
Because like he said, if they don't get approval, then it's a dead issue.
well, no, the issue is
Then it's approved.
then it's approved.
If you don't.
No, no.
meet the 62-day deadline-
No, I understand, but I'm saying if if they don't get approval from the Board of Health,
Oh.
it's a dead
Then they
issue. That's what I
deny
meant.
it.
It's denied. That's what I meant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I would just, I think the,
Reach out to the applicant and then,
should it be a formal request by the planning board to mutually extend
Right.
the time period?
I'll make that motion because we need it now because it's too late at the next meeting. Make a motion that we mutually extend that time period for, but how do you do increments of 30?
well, you would request a request.
Request for them to have it, yeah.
Right.
And we will accept that request.
Right. 2 months is fine.
2 months?
Yeah, I mean, hopefully they've got everything resolved. and
Right.
At the next meeting, you're done.
Mm.
So 2 months should be more than more.
Yeah, okay. So is there a second on that?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Great.
Our next meeting is June 14th. Thank you all. Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.